Welcome back, punters, to another edition of the Punters Academy. Of course, we've got John Walder back to review the Newcastle Hunter meeting on Saturday. John, good morning.
You're trying to confuse me with two provincial meetings, but we got through it. It's weird to see Kembla and Newcastle on the same day. Geez, it was probably the best looking track we've dealt with for months.
Yeah, for sure. The times were not that flash, though. I mean, probably in that dead range and maybe even heading towards the slow, the better side of slow. But it certainly didn't look poor in terms of the rail. That seemed to be a bit of an advantage being on the fence and a bit of on-pace advantage visually, but I think that was more pace-related. So
yeah, I think if you had the choice, certainly towards the inside was the place you wanted to make ground, wasn't it? But that's pretty much standard on any track, isn't it? I think it was a bit overplayed and, like you say, the time, like some of this, there was nothing in between. It was like really slow tempos for the main part or really quick. And, probably the two best races of the day maintained a solid speed. But, yeah, there's a big mix of everything. So I think everyone was a bit thrown out by that.
Indeed. I suppose wide was a big no-no, wasn't it?
Wide, no cover, in the run, and then sort of making your ground was wide. I think you've got to be lenient, and like floating's the only one that's really ripped away from him down that centre part of the track. Quite a few horses made ground, but never really looked like getting into it. I guess Rossa came down that part too, but that race just looks like it's about as ugly as it comes.
Yeah, well, floating wasn't one that I'd pegged, and I must say it improved a lot of what I thought it would do. Maybe I was a bit too harsh and still lightly raced, of course.
Everyone underestimates how badly Blake Spriggs rode it last start, maybe. As it kept beating. It was down the middle that day at Newcastle, and he dragged it back, then just over-raced out there. Then he sort of missed the boat, gets it to the outside, somehow gets it beaten to finish. Then you watch it come out in a much more difficult race on paper on Saturday and gapped them. It does show you the difference. I'm not saying it's all Blake Spriggs' fault, but it shows you the difference a rider makes, conserving energy in the run and keeping them balanced and all that. A horse makes a big difference in the finish.
For sure. Let's start off with the 900-metre two-year-old race, fast tempo here. And the winner's done Cylinder's done a pretty good job, really, having to be dragged back there. And
probably should have won. Probably should have won.
Yes.
The widest runner in the Godolphin blue colours, dragged back. A pretty good ride, all things considered, because I think he goes forward. He's in a world of pain, and the way, sort of, as we've said, it played a bit like Rosehill, this track. It was definitely advantageous to make your ground inside rather than sitting wide and trying to circle. So he did a good as job as he could, I think. But you see the horse gets quite keen. He has to come wide to make his run, and he looks like he just dies on his run 50 out. And the winner, had every possible chance and did nothing wrong. Solid enough win. Leader went okay. Thought they were probably the standouts. But as you said, Cylinders, they run this race a few times and redraw the gates. I think it wins most occasions. Yeah,
I think that's a fair thing to say, and it might be worth following it. Maybe, I think. Anyway,
they're just going so well, aren't they? They just seem to be producing really solid two-year-olds. All their old stages keep on coming. We see Villana win later in the day. Gravina ran well. They're running well here. They're running well in Melbourne. They're two-year-olds. Everything's all systems go. The Godolphin team at the moment.
Okay, let's get on to race 2, the highway over 1,600 metres.
I'll leave this to you because it's inexplicable.
Sorry?
I'll leave this one to you, this race, because the run of this winner is inexplicable.
Yeah, I didn't find it.
You didn't find it off the non-tab Dubbo win first up for the new stable, where it only won by like half a length or something, and then yeah.
I'll give you two guesses to the horses I backed in the race.
Second and third.
Jalmari fell into it again. The love affair continued. I just figured with Bowman back on, and it was worth having a chance at the price. And
this is the worst race that it's been in all prep. There's no doubt. So I definitely can't knock. Giving him one last chance.
But that's it.
The winner's back third last year. Classic Jason Collard ride, just from a wide draw, drags it back to the fence. But it actually ran like the fourth fastest 8 to the 6 or something. So it does make a dash here, which is, it's never shown in its life anything like this. And it's not as if it breaks the clock coming home, but it obviously bashes up the rest of these horses. Very fast tempo, so somewhat flattered by that, but and the ground saving ride. But I don't know. The dramatist is back in there in the green, trying to force out there with the blinkers, and basically gets held up all the way down the straight. The second horse is back last, pulling to the outside now, and eventually winds up. But that's pretty false, isn't it? All this is, they're going pretty slow at this point. So,
well, actually, it wasn't that bad, really. Last 200 was 1.6 above the race, courtesy of the winner. But
yeah.
Look, Radiohead's gone okay there, I think.
Well, it's
in high grade, I just like
the
to see
time
the
itself
stronger
overall
ride.
is good. That's what I can't understand. It's a head scratching race from a bunch of horses that didn't look too. Oh, this is what you'd expected. This sort of clump of horses whacking up the straight, and then I don't know what the hell. Where's this horse come from? Too much. I love highways, but this one I was very happy that it did my head in prior to the race, and I had no interest in it. And I was very happy when that horse dashed 6 in front, because I wouldn't have found it in a pink fit.
Well, there you go, eh?
Yeah, I think Dramatist is probably the one that's forgivable. There was another horse, back on the inside too. Was it? Oh, Sassy's Choice that sat wide just off the speed, off the fast tempo, sort of loomed up and then knocked up pretty badly. I thought it was a complete forgive.
I think Radiohead with a stronger rider might have a chance in a highway. Okay, race 3. Geez, the money was in the bag very quickly here. With shorts.
This is probably the most important part of the race, and the most. So shorts outside draw. Just knuckles and completely unbalanced sideways, and not a horse that you would ever want to absorb pressure in a race. So as soon as it didn't cruise to the front, like I think most people expected,
including me, yeah, I made a donation there very quickly.
I did the double one. I thought there was only 2 possibles, it and French Bonnet, so I did the double donation. I actually didn't think the winner ran 1400 strong. I still don't think it does. Just one of those races that was slowly run. Probably went a little bit too slow on French Bonnet. Didn't capitalise on its sort of one pace strong nature. I even heard Kim Moore come out and say, like, I think she expected shorts to lead, but she's like, I've told Dylan to bore it up a bit at the 600 because this horse has a flat spot. And then I think they go on probably wins here, but
it did quicken up between the 8 and the 4, 2.3 lengths above. So
yeah,
I don't think it was a bad ride or anything.
No, not a bad ride. I don't think it was ready. I honestly don't. I think Shorts would have won the race if it had a step clean. I just think it was a really pretty average race. I think the winner's won by act of God. Form wise, I think it'd be treating as a barrier trial for French Bonnet. And I think the rest behind are pretty steady horses. I couldn't believe Zucchina was $6 in a Sydney metropolitan race, even if it was at Newcastle. It's a very steady animal, and that was kind of what got me involved in the race. I'd be very worried about this form going forward, and I wouldn't be using the win of 10 bells over 1400 as a form pointer in the future that it's going to run a strong 1400 in a better race than this.
Okay, let's get on to the very slowly run 2300 metre race, which was a bit of a barrier trial. It was really an 800 metre race. That's all it was. And King Frankel, too good. For those backers, I did my money here as well. I got myself into a bit of strife fairly early in the day. So, I backed our candidate and Gin Martini at longer prices and didn't give a yelp.
What about fun fact? Back third last. Like it's, yeah, as you said, like it's not even worth watching the first half of the race. Nothing really happens. Nothing really happens for the whole race, and the winner just runs up 3. And how much is this race worth? 150 more, 300,000. So $160,000 barrier trial for the winner. Not a bad effort.
Yes.
Yeah, progressive enough horse. Don't know where he's
Yeah, look,
level.
I backed at the previous start and we were scratched at the barrier, and but didn't chime in Saturday.
No, and then
Okay.
Excuses wise, like I said, that they've run the fastest last 800, basically the whole field coming home, which they're entitled to do. Nothing race.
Indeed. Let's get on to the solid run race 5, the Midway, I suppose we'd call it. And what have we got floating here? Did the Cashels there on the first couple in the run, Tim Clark there on the leader, and Sabranko, the other horse.
Yeah, I think this is a classic example of, I know they sort of Timpanist as they wanted to use the gate. They came out, changed it to be ridden more forward, and it was just completely overdone by Reece Jones early, which has pushed the tempo. I don't think anyone's thought that this would be a fast run race. And you can tell that those three inside Tims just forced him to sort of work a bit more than he would have expected. And you can see the gaps opening behind, throughout the field. They're going a lot quicker here than I think they definitely needed to. And those few riders up front just desperate to get those on-pace spots have pushed it, weakened it up, I think, to your detriment. I don't know if he would have beaten the winner. He's
no.
Pretty smart horse. That's the second time it's done this at Newcastle in its last 3 starts. Pace assisted both times, but just effortless. It just looks a classy sort of horse, doesn't it? Everything it does easy. When it gets these tempo onto suit, it just stretches out. It looks like next preparation. He could be a pretty smart horse. I don't know where he's going to end up, this horse.
Well, Timpanist was pulled up with heat stress and poor post-race recovery, so no excuses there. It was a decent sort of win.
Yeah, ridden way too close, Timpanist. I think he's probably pigeonholing him a bit more as a wet track, even though he's a bit softer here. Yeah, he's a funny horse to catch, Timpanist, but I definitely think he needs to be ridden conservatively. More than that, that's for sure. The first two, hard fit, on pace types that have done their absolute best, but the winner looks like the only progressive horse in the race to me.
Yeah, mind you, they weren't coming home. It was more of a case the others were stopping too, which sort of exacerbated the appearance of the win, but still can't knock it for sure.
No. And he's not I think he's only his first racing prep, isn't he? He's only fourth. Sorry, he's had 2 runs previous. And
that was its 5th run this prep, and
5th run this prep.
Had a previous preparation. 2 runs.
He's had pre-race. He's racing in earmuffs still. Quite interesting. So he's obviously a quirky horse that appreciates that solid tempo. So because he's 5 lengths above, or roughly fast tempo, wins by 4, average tempo, jiggy joggy race. Did a few things wrong, gets another solid tempo and does that. So he's obviously got some racing manners issues too at the moment that the solid tempos help with.
For sure.
Okay.
For sure. Okay, let's get on to race 6, the 1850-88. What do we got here? Solid tempo again. And Rondino got the job done.
Really good ride, this. And, geez, what a horse he's been for the connections. This prep was one from 1,600 to 2,400. Good tracks, heavy tracks. Back to 1850 here off a 45-day break or something like that. Maps back last. They probably went a bit quicker than I thought they would, but not excessively. And just a really good ride from Schiller. Really weird run from Pink Ivory. Got keen and completely dropped the bit, and then through the line it was just about the strongest horse. So I don't know what the heck to do.
Ladder recover and coughing it.
Yeah.
Norris's my dad, the leader, was poor post recovery and heat stress. And Global Osbred doesn't seem to be a problem if you declare that you're going to ride overweight in advance, but if you don't and you get pinged post race, then they're handing out the fines on Saturday.
But we'll talk about that one because Democracy Manifest, the horses, when we get to it. But if it's it's obviously minimum of a half kilo over, and I agree. I think if you weigh out under and come back, between a kilo and a half kilo over, he's got to be 0.05 of a length for the second in that race, and only got a $1,000 fine. You think he dead set should nearly get 6 weeks, but if he's affected the outcome, this horse is a bit of a nightmare, isn't he? This Oakfield Camel. He's bloody. I think he needs to lead, dictate, and roll. Didn't get the chance to do that here. Obviously, his effort's okay, but look at him. He just drives you mad, doesn't he? He just does enough to suck you in that next time you think he's going to get us off the run and just keep running. But he took forever to get past Creadiris, and I don't know. Does he need further? What does he need? I don't know. Like, his effort's obviously very good there, isn't it? Like, it's not bad. Creadiris sitting outside the leader, very good. It's not the most bloody. It's just all these horses are starting to get in a bit of the too hard baskets in behind. So, but Rondino, good job. Absolutely no knock on him. Rachel going way too quick on another leader. Pink Ivory said this is the excuses. Blinkers, I doubt they'll be on again next time. I think they'll come back off, but I don't know what the heck to do with that horse. Creadiris was probably the run of the race.
Yeah, okay, let's move on to the Spring Stakes Group 3. No, thank you. It is a rubbish race, I think. This one here, 7 runners between 1.87 lengths or something.
Betting was interesting here. This save a date for me has been really impressive. It was like, what was it, $2.80 to like $4 early in the day. And then it was firmed into like $3.40. And then I think it got to $6. So, and then 10 seconds after the race, they were very quick to say, yep, going straight to the paddock, definitely had enough this prep. So you got the feeling that they were well aware that the horse was at least on the edge, not saying there was anything untoward under any circumstances, but I feel like they were expecting the horse to have regressed from what it had shown previously, and it did. Yeah, well, survival of the fittest, and thank Christ for my poor followers. It was Pia Rossa at $26. It was I don't know how it won. But looking at the times now, it kind of makes more sense because it didn't win. It was just the best, worst horse on the day.
Best, worst horse.
Well, it's just, isn't it a shame? Like, this horse has been a feeder race to some really good races over the spring for years and years. They read out the honour list on Saturday of horses. This is nice horses, a lot of some really good horses that have won this race. It used to be a target race, and now what is it? It's a Class 1.
Well, is it poorly programmed, John? Do you think?
Well, they've pulled it from that Newcastle Cup meeting and put it here, which is, what is this? It's the end of a carnival where everything's gone to the paddock that's any good. And what are you left with? You've got like horses like Basquet here, who's taken off to the front, who's beaten up. He's been through grand finals, hasn't, raced to his best. So they've thought, we'll have a shot at this because it's no good. You've got Token Capitalist that was going around in provincial races a couple of weeks ago, did a decent enough job in beating 7 lengths in that race, whatever was behind Golden Mile last start. Radina, who's been here, there, and everywhere all prep. Kazalark, who's won a maiden at Hawkesbury last start. The winners won a Gosford maiden last start. It was a maiden, wasn't it?
Yeah, the winner. Hang on.
I think it was coming out of a maiden. It won at Gosford last start, but Robusto won a city maiden last start. It's a shame. It's just a shame. It is. I think it is a programming error because it's either not a Group 3 anymore, or you leave it where it was and it's a feeder race, and it still is a Group 3. So I don't understand what they're trying to do. Just plug races into wherever they feel like to bump up these silly. Whatever the hunter is.
Look, I just put a line through the race. I can't see anything good to say about any of them. Basquet and Rednear both pulled out with the pumps.
It's exactly what it is. It's a race to not even talk about. And it's a goddamn Group 3 3-year-old race, like a race that should be feeding derbies and whatever, like it should be an exciting race where you say, this horse is going to go here, there, and everywhere, and it's just not. So I hope it's a one-off, but I don't think it's worked.
Okay, let's get on to the Hunter, of course. Solid tempo here, and we saw Valana get the job done. I've backed a few runners here and at longer odds, and up to be, I suppose the most successful of those was Gravina. Skylab 2, which was a great run and great price. I thought it was 61. They bet so.
I was with you.
I suppose what was it? Is it go to the gong now or whatever it is?
I don't know, and it's a bit of a funny horse. Like I think he flies fresh. He's a hard horse to catch, so you just be a little bit wary of him. And he's definitely a long odds horse, isn't he? Like he's a horse that you'd like to catch it at big odds and sort of spec rather than be super confident about. But his effort, I thought he was one of the runs of the day for sure. One of the rides of the day from Nash, just positioned this horse perfectly, and we get to see vintage Nash here that we don't get to see as much too often, where he obviously put the suspension back to ride this horse, and he made the most of it. And you see him late. Like, everyone hates it when you talk about Nash, how good he is in a finish, but this is how good he can be. Tim thought he was home, I think, on the leader.
Look, for a beaten horse, it was a great ride on in the Congo there.
Congo,
quickening up nicely.
The riders up front did a really good job in a race that they could have overdone it to control the tempo and keep it amongst themselves. Not as if they went slow, but they played into their own strengths, and his Skylab coming down the outside, second from the outside. There was another runner that was, this is Brutality on the fence. Another horse, I'll just remind you, that was another one you backed, I think, just to rub it in a little bit. Unlucky on the fence. Not unlucky, just continues to race well. This horse, was it?
Swats that, yeah.
Dead set running to about 6 dead ends, swats that, and gets turned sideways and still bursts through the line. It was a very good run. Another beaten up horse. I don't know where the hell it goes now, but yeah, very good run. Swats that. Just ran out of jockeys, I think, the poor buggers. They had to put a claimer on in a non-claimer race, but desperately unlucky, that horse. See if I can get the head on. This is a cracker. Where is it? Stewards. Here we go. Second from the outside.
Too very decided to part company.
I think he thought the horse would go on a miss.
Yeah.
And it pulls up with no issue, I believe. Or did it pull up a little bit lame or something? But he stops riding it, pulls it up.
Mild heat stress.
He goes. Failed out. So the horse pulled up with mild something.
Heat stress.
Mild heat stress. But you don't see that very often. The jockey just actually pulling the horse out of the race and bailing on it. But he obviously thought he had a reason to at the time. And poor old 11-11 backers failed with him. But that's the game.
Yeah, that nice little quicken up between the 6 and the 4 and in the Congo was virtually a winning move, but not quite to be.
Good horse, the winner, and it went really well first up. I think they sort of just jumped at it, had a crack at that big prize money second up, drew the horrible gate. Maybe doesn't run that distance either. Back to this grade, better ride, better gate. Yeah, I think the best two horses in the race probably cleared out, and no surprise. But I don't know if those horses continue on to races now, or they get put away, and then horses like Skylab and that you'd expect to continue on. Brutality for sure. So I think that'll be the parting of the ways for a couple of that form in Renal split. There'll be half of them go for a break and half of them continue on. So I think it'll be a good feeder race, that race.
On to the consolation prize there, or what I thought might have been a consolation prize for the favourite, Waihaha Falls, not to be. And it was a bit of a messy race. I handled it poorly, actually. First bet I had was Dave Dwyer on the favourite. I took the $3 thinking it would start shorter, so I got that very wrong. Fortunately, I was in on Titanium, whatever it was, Titanium Power, is it?
He's a genius, Joe Pride, isn't he?
Finally, very late, thanks to Combat, charged into the winner as well. So that was that was the only collect I had at Newcastle.
He's a genius, Joe. Last time it looked like the wrong one won, and this time it looked like the wrong one won again. And everyone thinks he's mad sending these two horses out because they're both front-running types. But at these last two races, they've sort of run cover for each other, and one or the other's got home at odds. I think it was double figures last time, Titanium Power, and Coal Crusher's got home at 16-1 here. Glenn's just controlled the speed, and when this horse does save a bit of energy, he's hard to get past.
It's a bit disappointing, that O'Shea runner.
I think it was another one that was ridden too close. I don't think that's its go, and I think they just probably thought it was too good for him. Big weight, ridden too close. I thought it sort of tried its absolute heart out. The horse that ran third, Democracy Manifest, it's the horse we're talking about. So it's just, to me, I don't get it. How can this be $1,000 fine? You get beat this far, you've literally, you know, if weights and measures mean anything, and it's a question more for someone like yourself, that you know, if you change the weight of a horse by kilo, what sort of margin change would that be? To me, it's got to be more than
depends on a few factors, but more than the
100%.
margin.
Yeah, small margin. Anyway, it's up to the stewards to police these things, but it's disappointing for the punters for sure. I thought Never a Talk was ridden too close, a bit similar to Waihaha. Said it did a good job. Cotilli, I think, went as well as it possibly can. I think all the horses here ran to their form. It's, as you said, it's not a bad race for a benchmark 88. It was a bit of a consolation race. I think most of these horses would have tried to get in the Hunter if they could. Jojo Was a Man was probably the only horse that was, you know, really disappointing, that sort of sat just off speed, wide with cover, and didn't finish off first up. But and Titanium Power probably the other one.
Sorry, didn't have much cover, John, did it? Jojo?
Who's that? I thought it had 3 wide cover, did it not?
Let's just go back.
I thought Cotilli might be 3 wide there and it had the back of it. You might be right. It might be wide, no cover. It might have been just when it pops out there. So yeah,
just
3 wide, no cover, the majority. Oh, there was a decent run here. Back second last, this sort of Super Strike. I thought it went quite well first up. I think this guy's a pretty Collett. Is it the father who brings a couple over from New Zealand? I thought it poked along quite well first up for a horse from New Zealand. That just didn't look like it was the right race for it on Saturday. Got going nicely late through the middle here in the purple with the black. Yeah, I think this race is a pretty solid race too. Even Festival Dancer inside it got going quite well, considering it was first up.
Yes, okay. Well, let's get on to the last, Redwood Shadow. Average tempo here, up the fence. Got the job done. I was on that thing that Zach Lloyd rode. Bahamut.
But yeah, the one from up in Queensland. It's not a bad horse. Very strange, isn't it? It's obviously got issues. He scratched it a few times, tried to put it in races down here where it hasn't made the field. He's a weird trainer, that character. Places his horses very strange. This race is just horrible. No leader. They've gone out slow. They haven't come home overly.
Oh, sorry, John. They had a leader. They just weren't able to lead on it.
So I got in trouble for that. So I put up a thing there, no change of tactics. One of the weirdest things I've ever seen, can't explain it. And I got attacked from the trainer privately to say, why did I say that? Why didn't I ask him? And I'm like, well, I've got an opinion. I just thought it was difference of opinion. I think it was crazy. And his opinion is that this horse has raced without cover 3 times in its career and hasn't finished off. And, you know, my argument was, well, a soft lead or a mat that looked disgraceful if you're going to try and take a sit. You know, I would have thought a soft lead was a no-brainer, but they're of a difference of opinion, which is absolutely fine. But I just find it strange that people get angry when you have an opinion. Like, I wasn't attacking anyone. I just thought my opinion was it was a strange decision. So, but apparently that's not what you're allowed to do these days. It was a big go for the horse too. And I was actually more concerned about Tim's reputation than anyone else's, because Tim's a rider that's, you know, known for, you know, controlling races and leading, and that's his A1 superpower. And he just looked like a clown here when he jumps in front and tries to grab hold. There's no spot, and he sits 3 wide, no cover on a heavily back runner on a race on a day where inside was certainly no disadvantage. And I thought Tim was the one who sort of came out worse off, apart from the people who put their money on it as well.
Yes, strange affair.
Yeah, well, from a race perspective, nothing. The winner's just found the right spot, done not a lot, had absolutely every chance and stuck its neck out. It's probably done that 2 times in a row, and that's what the horse is. It's a horse that's got a little bit of speed, tries really hard, and he'll win races when things go his way, and that's exactly what happened on Saturday.
Okay, horses to follow, John.
You go first. I've got to go through.
I think out of the highway, I'm going to stick with Radiohead. I think I suggested it last time. I'd like to see a different rider go on, and Skylab next start, but prefer on a track with give in it, or plenty of give in it. So that's the caveat there. Outside that, not much to recommend from my point of view, other than any that's that wide or had to try and make their runs wide. I think can be forgiven. and I'm sort of borderline that 2-year-old that ran second in the first cylinder, perhaps making it a horse to follow as well.
Just in those 900 races, it's just hard to be fully committed to the form out of them sometimes. But I agree, it was a good effort. I don't know if I've got one. I've got. I don't even have one that's like close enough to, that I think is going to find a race, even if it's in a couple of starts. Like horses like Super Strike and those, they've just really got to find the right race. So I couldn't really find a horse that was knocking on the door, or that I thought could just sort of overcome anything. It was a bit of a weird meeting for me. So, and the races were weird too. I'd be against 10 Bells. I think it's a sort of a negative horse to follow. All that, as you said, we've talked about it too much. All the form out of that Spring Stakes, be very wary of it. I think it's more of a meeting to be wary of than a meeting where I found too many horses to follow.
Could be some form reversals out of that meeting for sure.
Yep.
So just keep an eye on that, punters. Okay, let's get into the questions. Of course, before we do, let's mention Top Sport, our sponsor. And punters, if you don't have an account already, make sure that you get in contact with Tristan or one of the team there, and they'll get yourself sorted. Of course, they don't offer as many generosities as perhaps they used to because of the pressures they're under in terms of the model, which has been well documented and discussed. But certainly give you a fair bet, and especially late, you can get on. And more importantly, you can get on the win minimums on all these meetings from the time they go up. So,
and Tristan is like behind closed doors fighting hard to sort of not relax taxes, but to have them in line with, how do you say this? But the bookmakers can be rewarded for increasing or encouraging turnover and also providing betting products that are competitive. So he whilst a few things may have dropped off bells and whistles at the moment, he's fighting to sort of bring them back. But at the moment, they're just not viable. So hopefully, even we are in his corner for sure. But I can guarantee you that he's one of the few out there that is fighting for products that are that the people like us like to use. People like us and people who watch this show like to use. So try and support him where you can. That's for sure.
Okay, let's get into the questions. First one's from R. Peter, discussion point for the show. Why ha falls? What went wrong? Was it the weight, pace, or ground, or simply not good enough? Well, what went wrong was I lost a bit of dough.
The winner.
Well, I found the winner, but I mean, look, I got overexposed to it. I had too much on and ended up playing some back late, and it was I handled the race pretty poorly, to be honest, and got away with it. So, but look, I think that it would have gone close in the other race with the 52. Wasn't a bad run considering.
I don't think it was either. I think like a combination of sort of second up, ridden closer, 62.5 as opposed to what it's gone. What did it carry? 61.5 is what it carried, didn't it?
61.5 after the claim. Yeah.
After the claim, so it's gone up 3 kilos after the claim, up in trip, ridden closer, and 28 days between runs, and it wasn't a poor run. I agree with you. I think lighter weight, ridden a little bit more conservatively, I think it would have run a race in the Hunter for sure.
Okay, let's get on to Les's question this week. How do you front up week after week? I just can't keep infused with the midweeks or ordinary weekends. Les, mate, there's a winner in every race. You just got to find it. So when you're trying to make a living out of it, I suppose, it's nice to watch the good horses go around, but ultimately it's about backing winners and making money. So you just have to be committed, I suppose, if you choose to do this as a pursuit, unless it's just a hobby, in which case you want to have fun and enjoy it more when the carnival races are on, I suppose, John.
Yeah, I'm the same as you. Like I get more excited about Scone and meetings like that. To be fair, from a betting perspective, there's no doubt that some of the races, clashes between your Animos and all those have been great races and great theatre for people who love racing, and that's us included too. But probably not from a betting perspective as much. So, yes, exactly so. It's each to their own, and you do get a hangover, I think, after the carnival from my perspective, just because there's so much content that you have to provide, or you have to cover. There's just so many races. There's just 10 race cards in over 4 states on Saturdays, depending how much work you do on them. It just takes a lot out of you. So there is a hangover, but not for me. It's not hating the racing after it. It's not the enthusiast. The enthusiast, you're just tired. So yeah, as long as you manage yourself, I think it doesn't matter to me what level the races are. Every race is a new race, like you say. You're just trying to find the answer and find an angle. So it's more of a tired. It's more of an energy perspective.
Indeed. Nick Heathcote asks, should trainers be gagged from criticising poor rides from jockeys who blatantly ride against instructions? Most of you will have seen, or if not heard, about the P. Moody spray of Blake McDougall over the weekend. Of course, he expressed it in a post-race, I suppose, analysis or breakdown of what he thought about the ride. To the owners, it obviously got out in the social media, and he's obviously apologised to Blake since, and there's been a bit of movement. I think the horse might have moved stables too. Now with Mar,
Eustace. Oh, it has officially, has it?
I'd heard that, but I don't know if it's actually official. I haven't checked.
Did you see his follow-up tweet? His follow-up tweet was something along the lines of, I apologise, Craig Newell, not what's his name, sorry, Blake McDougall will stay part of Peter Moody Racing, but the ownership group won't, or something like that. So,
look, yeah. I mean, what do you think, John? I mean, I think at the end of the day, he's entitled as the trainer to sort of give instructions and expect that they're going to be followed where possible. I think that he's entitled to have his opinion, and he's entitled to give him a spray. Perhaps that should be done just between the two of them, and not, maybe not done publicly like that. Because the moment you involve a third person, of course, then it's out there, isn't it? So
yeah, it's not public, but it is public, isn't it? You've got to expect it to become public these days, and you've got to you've got to be smart enough to the content you're sending out. You've got to expect it to be shared, even if that's not your policy. You can be as critical as you want. You can have any opinion you want. You can't be abusive. There's absolutely no use in getting, sort of personal and angry and using words and terms that aren't needed to pass on your opinion. I think that's probably the main thing. But I think that they should be openly allowed to criticise rides just as they are, the opposite. I think it's gone too far, but you just got to be careful how you word it, haven't you? I think that's the main thing, and it was pretty aggressive, the tone and everything. And you can understand why. They put a lot of work into it. They get up early, and it actually, sometimes I get more angry when some trainers are the opposite. They're blasé about who they put on horses and how they give instructions to ride the horses to their to suit that horse's strengths and weaknesses. And it's great to hear Peter sort of identifying that he's trying to work out what this horse is. He's told the rider to ride it in this way because they're trying to work out, what this horse actually is. So I think that's a positive, that you're hearing a trainer that's, right on the ball, and he hasn't got what he's wanted. He's frustrated. I understand all of it. You've just got to handle it the correct way, haven't you?
Yeah, fair enough. Okay, Joshua's asked, with the rail being advantageous at Newcastle, in review, all those off the rail, would you suggest not suited or even ? Hard to explain floating's performance in my head. And in review, do you make notes on all runners suited, even, not suited, or just the standouts? Look, the comments, the days of me making comments are pretty much long gone. It's all automatic for me now, and the data does the work, and obviously the Argos that sit behind it. But otherwise, I just couldn't cover the amount of racing I have to cover. So no other way of doing it. But I mean, do whatever you think works best. Perhaps making a note of those that, overachieved, considering the circumstances, might be worthwhile, or just making a general meeting comment about the actual day or particular race comment, however you see fit. John, what do you think?
I actually think there's more upside these days in negatively marking horses. I think a lot of people have got a handle on, this horse was not suited, it's that wide, it was slow tempo, it was fast tempo. I think you get more out of the horses that were absolutely flattered. I think a horse like Katirli sort of comes to mind from Saturday. So the last start, they didn't go that quick. It was a track that was drying out on pace, was perfect. Jamie Carr got it to the front, got him in a rhythm. It never really did anything. So it's led on a track that was sympathetic to leaders at that stage and never really did anything and put a margin on. So visually, everyone remembers it. It comes up short. I think those sorts of horses are the horses you get more out of these days, rather than the horse like, say, Democracy Manifesting. I think it was in that same race that was a bad ride, flashed home down the outside. Everyone sees it, and it's in isolation. But you saw Democracy Manifest came up quite a similar price to Katirli on Saturday, and I'd much rather oppose Katirli than jump in the corner of the horse that everyone sort of finds. So I think the more obvious now that everyone's finding are the horses that are not suited, and they're probably not as aggressive against the horses that have been flattered, and whatever that means. But his answer is I do both, suited, even, so every possible chance, or not suited, pretty much.
Okay, next question from Graham. Hi, John. I struggle a lot with maps and the effect it has on the price of horses. In a hypothetical race over a mile, let's say with 14 runners, horse A was 4-1 and you had settling midfield 1 out, and horse B was 4-1 and you had settling on its back. What would the prices look like if B settled in front of horse A, i.e. reverse the exact settling positions? Regards, Graham. And then he wanted to know whether or not we're going to just do a review show until next carnival, or keep going with the rapid fire. I suppose we'll continue to do the rapid fire as we see the Group 1s and Group 2s. There's a few races in Perth coming up, and they still have the Sandown Zipping Classic Day to come, so we'll just play it by ear week to week.
Azza and I are sickos, so we'll do as much as possible. As much as we can get Paul in here and as many shirts as he can produce, we will get him behind the rapid fire camera as much as we can, because we're sickos that love it. But
so in relation to Graham's question, John, how do you see it?
I'll answer it quickly, because I think it's probably more a question for you than me. But I sort of test horses against each other, and that's how I sort of come to final. So if I'll go through a race and I'll say, for argument's sake, A and B, and I identify them both as good chances in this race. They've passed my test of running the distance, that sort of thing, ready to win the race. It would all be a matter of sort of characteristics of the race. So if it's a slow run race and I think B is going to settle further back than A, but has a better turn of foot than it, it's that sort of thing to me. So it's sort of, every race is different, but I think it is underplayed even a pair further back, how much the map is. Having to make up that extra, couple of lengths is a big factor in most races. If you just say like an evenly run race, no pace advantage, nothing like that. I think, position in map is still one of the most underplayed things. And the further you get back, I think people are less aggressive than they should be on the effect it has on the winning chances of that horse.
Map's critical. In terms of the intricacies of how you go about it, of course, everyone does it differently. I don't think it's as simple as just saying, well, that's a back marker, or that's going to settle further back. They're both 4-1. This one's the front runner, therefore the front runner's a better bet. I mean, often it will be the case, but it's not always the case. Obviously, pace dependent, bias dependent pattern. So I think it really just does depend on the circumstances that you're faced with on a given race or on a given day. So
so many different,
I don't think there's no hard and fast rule that you can adopt, other than to say that you're generally better off backing, obviously, horses that are going to settle closer to the front, but we all know that. So nothing magic there. Don't know how else to explain it, Graham.
No, I think you pretty much know, like, exactly. Every race is different. Work out the tempo you think it's going to be, and then that's going to have a major effect on where you think the horse is going to settle, as in what it's going to have to overcome.
Yes. And the last question for this week, we don't have a question of the week, actually. We'll bump that up to.
We're going to jackpot next week. We'll market the heck out of it this week.
Yeah. Question for the show. Obviously, most bookies' prices are copy and paste sort of stuff, but there's still the odd opinion out there where somebody will noticeably be above the rest. Ladbrokes and Eds have certainly been doing it a bit recently. Do you guys pay any attention to this in terms of how the market prices will evolve? Or is it a case of any early betting just being at the best price available at the time you decide on something? Look, more of my betting is done late, and obviously getting the best price that you possibly can is key. But in saying that too, depending on who you are and depending on which agencies you're going to play, then there can be a sensible order in terms of how you approach the placement of those bets. So, there are certain bookmakers I wouldn't bet. If the price, let's say it was 5 or 6 I was going to back it with, or 8 or 10 or whatever, there's certain ones that I wouldn't want to put in the queue first, simply because I know what effect that'll have by the time I manage to click buttons manually, because we're not allowed to use automation at this point in time. So yeah, it just depends on, I suppose, situations like that. But yeah, getting the best price is obviously key, and I don't really pay any attention to what the corporates are doing as much in terms of whether they go over a particular horse that I think they should be shorter on. I'm probably more interested in what's happening on Betfair Late and just seeing things that happen with the totes and so forth. John, what do you think?
Yeah, I think the early betting is just cast, as in it's just not even worth worrying about. If you're set up and that's what you do, absolutely. But it's very hard and it's so touchy, isn't it? Like I don't know. Early betting wise, the only tip I'll give, this BetWatch, which is a free plug for these new whatever they are, competitive dynamic odds. They've like the new feature they've got about 1 million bookies on there, which is great compared to dynamic odds. You can filter them out, which is great. So if you've got your 10 or 12 or 20 or 50, doesn't matter how many bookmakers you want to use, and then you click on the horse's name, automatically ranks them in prices now, right? This second of what's available left to right. So I think that's one of the better new functions I've seen on any of these odds comparison sites. So straight away I can see, Scone Race 4 number 1, there's 5 people betting $41 or whatever, and I can see the bookie where it is straight away. So I think that's a good place if that's all you're trying to do is hunt down the best price. This BetWatch seems to be having a shot at the title and actually creating a few functions that are helpful to us, and the landscape has changed a lot since dynamic odds has been around. So we didn't have 263,000 bookmakers like we did back there. Bookmakers is a loose term, but yeah, I don't really know. I like everyone, you try and get the best price, and that seems the best way to do it now. But I'm mostly late betting now, same as you.
Okay, punters, thanks for tuning in. Of course, we will have a show I think on Thursday or so this week to do with some of the weekend's racing. And other than that, we will see you back here next Monday for another review. Have a profitable week and keep backing winners.
Cheers, guys.
See ya.